Snowdrop or Snow White? It was the middle of winter. Big, fluffy snowflakes were falling softly. The queen of a faraway land sat sewing by her window. The window frame was made of smooth black wood called ebony. As the queen looked out at the snow, she accidentally poked her finger with her needle. 3 little drops of red fell onto the white snow. She looked at the red drops on the white snow and thought, "I wish my little daughter could be as white as this snow, as red as these drops, and have hair as black as this ebony window frame." Soon, the queen had a baby girl. Her skin was white like snow. Her cheeks were rosy red, and her hair was black like ebony. They named her Snowdrop. But sadly, after some time, the kind queen passed away. The king soon married another woman, who became the new queen. She was very beautiful, but she was also very proud. She wanted to be the most beautiful person in the whole world. She had a magical mirror. Every day, she would look in it and ask, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the prettiest of them all?" And the magic mirror always answered, "You, queen, you are the prettiest in the land." This made the queen happy. But Snowdrop grew older and more beautiful every day. When she turned 7, she was as bright as sunshine and even prettier than the queen herself. One day, the queen asked her mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the prettiest of them all?" This time, the mirror answered, "You, queen, are very pretty, it's true, but Snowdrop is much prettier than you." When the queen heard this, she felt very upset and jealous. She called one of her servants and said, "Take Snowdrop deep into the forest, far away, so I never see her again." The servant led Snowdrop into the woods, but he felt very sorry for her when she looked sad. He said, "I won't hurt you, dear child." He couldn't bring himself to leave her all alone, so he helped her find a safe path and told her to hide. He felt much better knowing he had helped her, instead of leaving her lost. Poor Snowdrop felt a little scared wandering through the big forest. Friendly animals peeked out from behind the trees, but none of them bothered her. As evening came, she saw a little cottage hidden among the hills. She went inside to rest, because her little feet were tired. Everything inside the cottage was tiny and tidy. On the table, a clean white cloth was spread out. There were 7 little plates, 7 little pieces of bread, and 7 little cups with juice in them. 7 little knives and forks were laid out neatly. Along the wall stood 7 little beds. Snowdrop was very hungry. She nibbled a tiny bit of bread from each plate and sipped a tiny bit of juice from each cup. She didn't want to take too much from any one place. After that, she felt sleepy. She tried the little beds. One was too long, another was too short. Finally, the 7th little bed was just right. She snuggled down and fell fast asleep. Later that night, the owners of the cottage came home. They were 7 little dwarfs who worked in the mountains, digging for sparkling jewels. They lit their 7 little lamps and saw right away that someone had been there. The first dwarf said, "Who has been sitting in my chair?" The second asked, "Who has been eating from my plate?" The third asked, "Who took a bite of my bread?" The fourth asked, "Who has been using my spoon?" The fifth asked, "Who has been holding my fork?" The sixth asked, "Who has been using my knife?" The 7th asked, "Who drank some of my juice?" Then the first dwarf looked around and said, "Who has been sleeping in my bed?" The others came running. Each one whispered that someone had been in their bed too. But the 7th dwarf looked at his bed and saw Snowdrop sleeping there. He called his brothers over. "Look," he whispered. They all gathered around quietly with their lamps. "Oh my," they whispered in surprise. "What a lovely child she is." They were happy to see her, but were very careful not to wake her up. The 7th dwarf let her keep sleeping in his bed. He shared with his brothers, sleeping 1 hour in each of their beds until morning. In the morning, Snowdrop woke up and saw the 7 kind dwarfs. She told them her story about the jealous queen. The dwarfs felt sorry for her. They said, "If you will help us keep our house tidy, cook our meals, wash our clothes, and knit for us, you can stay here. We will take good care of you." Snowdrop happily agreed. So every day the dwarfs went out to work in the mountains, looking for gold and silver. Snowdrop stayed at home and took care of the cottage. Before they left each morning, the dwarfs always reminded her, "The queen might find out you are here. Be careful. Don't let anyone into the house while we are gone." Meanwhile, back at the palace, the queen thought Snowdrop was gone forever. She believed she was finally the most beautiful lady in the land. She went to her magic mirror and asked, "Mirror, mirror, on the wall, who is the prettiest of them all?" The mirror answered, "You, queen, are the prettiest here, it's true. But over the hills, with the dwarfs so kind, lives Snowdrop, the prettiest you will find." The queen was shocked and scared. She knew the mirror always told the truth. She realized the servant hadn't left Snowdrop lost in the woods. She felt very cross that someone else was still prettier than her. So she decided to trick Snowdrop. She dressed up like an old woman selling things and walked over the hills to the dwarf's cottage. She knocked on the door and called out, "Nice things to sell, pretty things to sell." Snowdrop peeked out the window. "Hello, good woman. What are you selling?" "Pretty things, dearie," said the disguised queen. "Colorful ribbons and laces." "She seems like a kind old lady," thought Snowdrop. "Maybe I can just buy a ribbon." She forgot the dwarf's yearning and opened the door. "My goodness," said the old woman. "Your dress needs a new ribbon. Let me tie it for you with one of my lovely new laces." Snowdrop didn't suspect anything tricky. She stood still while the old woman tied the lace around her waist. But the woman tied the lace much too tight, so quickly that Snowdrop felt dizzy and suddenly fell fast asleep onto the floor. "Now I will be the prettiest," whispered the tricky queen, and she hurried away. That evening, the 7 dwarfs came home. They were so sad to see their dear Snowdrop lying on the ground, fast asleep and not moving. They gently lifted her up. When they saw the new tight lace, they quickly cut it. Soon, Snowdrop took a breath. Her eyes fluttered open, and she woke up. They told her that old woman must have been the queen. "Please, Snowdrop, be very careful. Do not open the door for anyone when we are away." When the queen got home, she went straight to her mirror and asked her question again. But, to her dismay, the mirror still said, "You, queen, are the prettiest here, it's true. But over the hills, with the dwarfs so kind, lives Snowdrop, the prettiest you will find." The queen felt very angry and jealous to know Snowdrop was awake and well. She thought, "I must try another trick." She dressed up in a different costume and took a beautiful comb. She knew this was a magic comb that would make anyone who used it fall asleep. When she reached the cottage, she knocked and called out, "Lovely things to sell." Snowdrop called from the window, "I cannot let anyone in." "Just look at my pretty combs," said the queen, holding one up. It sparkled and looked so lovely that Snowdrop couldn't resist looking closer. The queen quickly handed her the magic comb through the window. Snowdrop thought it was so pretty, she put it in her hair right away. The moment the comb touched her head, its magic worked, and she fell down fast asleep. "There she sleeps," muttered the queen, and hurried away. Luckily, the dwarfs came home early that evening. When they saw Snowdrop asleep on the floor again, they knew something was wrong. They quickly found the sparkly comb in her hair. As soon as they took it out, Snowdrop woke up. She told them what happened. The dwarfs warned her again, even more seriously this time. Please, please do not open the door or take anything from anyone. Meanwhile, the queen went home to her mirror. She stamped her foot angrily when it gave her the same answer as before. She said to herself, Snowdrop must sleep forever. This time my plan will work. She went secretly into a hidden room and made a special apple. One side of the apple looked rosy and delicious, perfectly safe to eat. But the other side was magic. Whoever tasted it would fall into a very, very deep sleep. Then she dressed up as a friendly farmer's wife and traveled over the hills to the dwarf's cottage. She knocked on the door. Snowdrop put her head out of the window and said, I cannot let anyone in. The dwarfs told me not to. That's all right, said the woman kindly. I am just selling apples. But here, I will give you this beautiful one as a gift. No, said Snowdrop, I shouldn't take it. Don't be silly, laughed the woman. Are you worried it's tricky? Look, I will eat half. Now the apple was cleverly made so that the rosy, safe side was the one the woman ate. Snowdrop watched her eat it. The other half looked so juicy and tempting. Snowdrop really wanted to taste it. She reached out and took the apple. But as soon as she took one tiny bite from her side, she fell to the ground in a deep, deep sleep. This time she will sleep and sleep, the queen whispered gleefully. She rushed home to her mirror, and this time, at last, it said, You, queen, you are the prettiest of all. And her unkind heart felt happy as such a heart could be. When evening came, the dwarfs returned home. They found Snowdrop lying on the ground, not moving. No breath seemed to come from her lips. They were afraid she was in a sleep so deep they could not wake her. They lifted her gently. They checked her hair for combs and her clothes for tight laces. They washed her face with cool water. But nothing worked. The little girl stayed fast asleep. They were very sad. They watched over her for 3 whole days. Her cheeks were still rosy, and she looked just like she was peacefully sleeping. They said, She looks too lovely to hide away. We will make her a special bed where we can always see her. So they made a beautiful bed out of clear glass, like a crystal box. They put Snowdrop inside gently. They wrote her name in golden letters on the glass bed, telling everyone she was a princess. They placed the glass bed on a hilltop, and one of the dwarfs always stayed nearby to watch over her. Even the little birds came, an owl, a raven, and a dove, and sat sadly by her side. Snowdrop lay in her deep sleep in the glass bed for a long, long time. She still looked as white as snow, as red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. She looked just like she was dreaming. One day, a prince was riding through the forest and happened to pass the dwarf's cottage. He saw the beautiful glass bed on the hilltop and Snowdrop sleeping inside. He read the golden writing. He thought she was the loveliest person he had ever seen. He asked the dwarfs kindly, Please, could you let me take this special bed and the sleeping princess to my castle? I will take very good care of her. The dwarfs said, We would not part with her for all the gold in the world. But the prince asked so politely and seemed so kind that at last they felt sorry for him and agreed to let him take Snowdrop. As the prince's servants carefully lifted the glass bed to carry it away, they stumbled on a tree root. The little jolt caused the piece of magic apple that was stuck in Snowdrop's throat to pop out. Suddenly, Snowdrop's eyes opened. She sat up and looked around. "Oh my," she said, "where am I?" The prince rushed to her side, overjoyed. "You are safe with me," he said gently. He told her everything that had happened, about the tricky queen and the long sleep. Then he said, "I think you are wonderful. Please come with me to my father's palace and be my princess." Snowdrop smiled and agreed. She went home with the kind prince. Everyone at the palace prepared a wonderful celebration for their wedding. They invited many guests to the wedding party, including Snowdrop's old enemy, the queen. The queen, wanting to look her best, put on her fanciest dress. She looked in her mirror and asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the prettiest of them all?" And the mirror answered, "You, queen, are lovely here, I think, but the new young queen is prettier by far." When she heard this, the queen gasped. She felt so jealous and curious that she had to go to the wedding to see this new queen. But when she arrived and saw that the happy, beautiful bride was Snowdrop, awake and smiling, the tricky queen felt so foolish and cross. She was so upset that she turned around, ran out of the palace, and was never seen in that land again. But Snowdrop and the prince lived happily together for many, many years. Sometimes they would travel back to the mountains to visit the 7 little dwarfs who had been so kind to Snowdrop when she needed help.